Welcome. We send you greetings from all over Albuquerque. I believe we're all in town. This is the Climate and COVID-19 Impact on Students event, organized by the LGBTQ Resource Center and the Division of Equity and Inclusion. And this is the first of 3 events to address acts of racism and xenophobia that have been reported towards certain groups, including microaggressions and discrimination, and avoidance and harassment. In these events, we will discuss how valuing inclusivity means remembering that we all have different circumstances and treating everyone with respect. Panelists today will also discuss other items relevant to the impact of COVID-19 on our university community. Today, we're focusing primarily on students and have partnered with the ethnic resource centers on campus, along with OEO, the Global Education Office, the Dean of Students, and the Lobo Respect Advocacy Center. So thank you so much to all of you for joining us, and Shaq, I should say. This webinar is being recorded, and we invite departments to share it via email and social media. I'll call your attention to the fact that we have a second event called Climate and COVID-19, the Impact on Faculty and Staff, that will be taking place next week on April 17th from 2 to 3:30. And we're hoping to plan a third event with Asian Students Associations and other affected student groups, during which we hope to hear their concerns and brainstorm ways that we can address issues that they are facing. We also want to make you aware of some resources that we have to support you during this challenging time. The Faculty Senate has recently voted to create a credit, non-credit grading option for spring semester and other policies to promote the idea of faculty and instructor flexibility with students who are facing unique challenges in their educational success. We've set up a new student faculty facilitation network to help students and faculty navigate these new, more flexible policies. And we've created a document called DEI during COVID-19 as a set of guidelines for policy and practice during this time. So if you want to take a look at the Division for Equity and Inclusion website or the UNM COVID-19 website, you can get more information on these. So again, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today. And so I'll turn it over to my colleague, Frankie Flores, who will be serving as your moderator.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Frankie Flores. I am with the UNM LGBTQ Resource Center. I hope you all are doing well, or at least well enough in this new climate. We will have a number of panelists coming up. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A option, and we will field them for any of the panelists that we have. First up, we have Chris Wong, who is a student here at UNM. Chris will be talking about student impact directly.
Hi, my name is Chris. Any pronouns are fine. Sorry, what was the specific question again?
So Chris, your question was, what are ways that staff and faculty can show up for students during this time that feel meaningful to you?
I think ways that staff and faculty can show up for students is to be empathetic for their students and be a resource rather than a source of stress. We are all vulnerable to the virus and the stresses that come along with it, especially Black, Indigenous, and other communities of color. I think it's important to check in on your students and let them lead the way, ask them what they need, especially along with the resources that UNM has provided, such as internet access and laptop access. And I also think it's important for the professors to take care of themselves, especially if they're having classes through Zoom, because if you are not doing well, that translates to the students and they can see that, and it'll just cause a ripple effect. Kind of just inviting an environment of fear rather than like healing and support.
Great. So is there anything else that you would like for students to, or anything that you would like for faculty, staff to know, or is there anything that you feel like students are not able to voice at this moment?
I think it's important for faculty to keep in mind that not all students are just sitting at home with nothing to do. I think it's important to remember that if a student is not doing well in class, that there's probably other factors going on, such as probably like relatives that probably have contracted the virus and they have to take care of, being financial provider, just a whole bunch of different factors that can come into play. And to be mindful of that, and then just ask the student what is going on before jumping to assumptions.
So next up we have Jacob Olaguir, who is an ASU&M senator.
Cool. What's going on? My name is Jacob Olaguir, ASU&M senator. I'm on finance committee. So the question over here on the agenda was, in what ways do you see Asian students needing support during this time? And I guess I've kind of made a list. I feel like they would need support financially, academically, and just with like in the realm of self-care, mental health. But let me address financially first. So financially, I think as a Department of Equity Inclusion, we should try to promote the emergency scholarships. So ASU&M has allocated $30,000 to the different resource centers to provide an emergency scholarships of increments of $500. Just encouraging students to apply for those scholarships if they need to pay rent, if unknown fees have been brought to their bursar's account. And also answering some questions, if we're talking about finances right now, answering questions for students, because some students like very consciously apply for in-person classes because they prefer that experience over the online experience. So answering the question for those students who registered for in-person classes now being switched to online, if they are wondering if they can have a refund, maybe answering that question. I don't know the answer. Also, academically, kind of what was previously said, the Senate, like the faculty Senate has passed that order to have the option for students to switch to credit, no credit, but like in the executive order, I guess it's left up to the teachers on like how how students would be, how it would be determined whether students would get credit or no credit. Just kind of clarifying that it's up to the teachers, like how, if a student would get credit or no credit if they do switch to that like option. And mentally, I guess I kind of wanted to echo what was previously said, that not every student is sitting at home with nothing to do. There are definitely Asian students who are getting laid off from their job and like experiencing that racism. So then I guess that just goes back to like really promoting and doing outreach on those emergency scholarships would be really helpful. And I guess like other notes that I have, informing teachers that this is not the time to increase workload. Again, like not every student is sitting at home with nothing to do. Because although like everybody's in self-isolation because of this pandemic. It's definitely taken like a mental and emotional toll on some students. And another thing students have come to me talking about is just like their concern with the long-term effects of this virus, not only if their health, like if they contract the virus, but also like, well, I guess that's what the executive order is for, the credit, no credit, like their future and their degree. Other than that, I don't think I have anything else.
Thank you so much, Jacob. Is there anything specifically that ASU&M would like for student constituency to know that maybe isn't being addressed?
Can you say that question again?
Yeah, is there anything that ASU&M would like for students to know that maybe isn't being specifically addressed right now?
Oh, can I get back to you on that?
Sure. All right, up next, we have Nicole Tammy, who is at the Global Education Office.
Thank you very much, Frankie, and good afternoon to everyone. I was asked to speak about the impact of the current crisis on international students. And I think first it's important to say that international students are facing many of the same challenges and pressures that our domestic and out-of-state students are feeling. For those who have remained at UNM, they're certainly feeling the isolation and anxiety from being far away from their home communities, their families, and their support structures. And I know there's a lot of worry about not only their own safety, but the safety of their loved ones who are far away. Based on the communication we've had with UNM Housing, there are currently about 84 international students living in UNM housing facilities. There are additional students living in private campus housing, including Casas del Rio, and of course, students who live off campus, particularly graduate students and advanced undergraduate students. We have heard about an increase in discrimination and bias, particularly against students who are or are perceived to be Asian. I had the very disconcerting experience of being at the grocery store recently and seeing an Asian woman around my age who was walking around with a mask, but she was also holding her passport. And it took me a minute to sort of figure out why she was doing that. And it occurred to me that she was trying to signal the fact that she is in fact an American. And it was disconcerting to see that she felt the need to, just make it very public that she was in fact a US citizen, and was hoping, and this was my interpretation exclusively, to sort of, dissuade people from making comments or perhaps assumptions about where she's from and who she is. We have heard a lot of international students talking about financial concerns over lost work visas or having been laid off. Like other GAs and TAs, they're worried about the extension of their assistantships or student employment after May. In many cases, family members who might have been supporting them from abroad are facing their own financial challenges because of the COVID crisis, and they may have been laid off or have restricted income at this time, so they're not able to make normal payments or support their students in the same way that they had been previous. A lot of our international students don't qualify for emergency support, certainly not the emergency stimulus funds that are currently being talked about quite a bit. These funds are only for resident taxpayers. And in order to be a resident taxpayer, you need to have been in the US for 5 years or more. So that rarely happens for our international students unless they are PhD students who are here long term. Similarly, unemployment rules are very different in every state, and many of our international students don't qualify either because they're working part-time or, depending on their visa status, there are in fact restrictions that prevent international students from taking advantage of social support services outside of campus. I was asked to address the question whether there are international students who have not been able to get home. And yes, there are cases, we don't have many of them, but there are countries who have closed their borders and canceled international flights, and that is increasingly the case. So it's getting much more difficult to get home, either here from the US, or if you're an international student abroad, or a domestic student who went to study abroad for that matter. So we are aware that Ecuador has closed its borders entirely, even to its citizens. So we did have a student of Ecuadorian descent who is not currently able to return home. I was also reading that at the end of March, South Africa announced a 21-day lockdown. So there are countries that are becoming increasingly vigilant about allowing people in and out, including their own citizens. We have dealt with study abroad students who were having trouble catching flights back to the US. Or in some cases, an international student who's a UNM student who was studying abroad. And then that complicates things even more because they are not American citizens. And so getting back to the US, even though they have valid visas, has been difficult. We have been doing everything we can to support these students, whether they're trying to get home from the US or they're abroad and they're trying to get back to Albuquerque. In some cases, domestic students studying abroad have encountered issues because their home counties or cities have had restrictions about residents returning and needing to be quarantined. So it's not always easy even for out-of-state students here on campus to get home due to the various restrictions happening around the country, particularly in places like California and New York, where the cases of the virus has spread much more rapidly. And so there's some pretty stringent rules about movement and things of that sort. I do want to assure international students that GEO is currently open. We are operating virtually and can be reached through all kinds of means. If you go to geo.unm.edu, we have live chats, we have appointments, and we are open 8 to 5. We also do have the emergency phone for emergencies, and students should have access to that number. We do, like some of the other service centers, have some modest scholarship funds for international students who are facing financial hardships. So if you're not aware of that fund, I certainly encourage you to reach out to one of the International Student and Scholar Services advisors about how to apply for those funds.
Dr. Tammy, we had a question. Is the disconnect between synchronous learning and international students being addressed? An individual had a student mention that they are attending a class in the middle of the night from their home country.
That is a great question, and I have to plead ignorance on that simply because there's so many instructors and so many different courses. I anticipate that some instructors have thought about that issue and are offering alternative opportunities, perhaps to watch taped lectures, but I don't think that that has been systematically addressed, and I think it's in fact a really good question, so I will certainly pursue that with the folks. I do attend instructional continuity meetings that are happening regularly, and I think that's a great topic to bring up. Because there are many international students, particularly exchange students that are guest students that are usually here for a semester or two, who have returned to their home countries and are trying to complete their credits so that they don't lose the work and the credits that they were supposed to earn here and transfer back to their home institutions. So that's something that I will certainly pursue. I do know that online learning is not intuitive or familiar for all students, particularly students coming from countries where, infrastructure and internet is not as readily available and as common. So while I think for some students, transitioning to an online learning environment can be fairly fluid and intuitive, I think we have many students who grew up in more rural areas, even here in the US or New Mexico for that matter, but also internationally, that did not have the privilege of growing up around internet and feeling versatile in that way in terms of using the technology. So it's really important for our instructors and for us as an institution to think about how to support those students who may be taking online classes for the first time. And I believe that the credit, no credit option is in part meant to address some of those disparities and inequities. And certainly as we're thinking about solutions moving forward, including the possibility of a potential online semester in the fall, should this continue, those are questions that we're going to have to take very seriously and to think about. How do we prepare support and tutorials for students who may not be familiar with this realm of learning and get them up to speed so that they are not at a disadvantage?
Great. Dr. Zarai, can you shed any light on this? Also, anything that maybe the Student Faculty Facilitation Network can provide for this?
Absolutely. So if a student is struggling with the problem of synchronous classes, especially a student in another country trying to take a class in the middle of the night, please, I would first urge you to reach out to GEO, but we are also a resource, and you can send an email to Rodney Bowe at rbowe@unm.edu, and we will definitely help you to navigate that, because part of the UNM Senate resolution does talk about the fact that we are hoping faculty will be flexible, not only in terms of grading, but also in course delivery. And certainly that's a situation that we would want to attend to that was mentioned. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Zarai. Up next, we have Lisa Lindquist from the Lobo Respect Advocacy Center to talk about some ways that they are supporting students right now.
Hi, everybody. My name is Lisa Lindquist, and I run the Lobo Respect Advocacy Center on campus. So our primary function is to help students navigate campus and community resources. So I just want to use this time to sort of reiterate some of the things that we are doing for students, the ways in which we're engaging with students, and also the ways in which students can engage with us. First of all, we are running a remote operation. And so what that means is my staff, me and my staff, are available Monday through Friday from 8 to 5 via phone, via email, and also we are happy to set up any Skype or Zoom meetings as needed. A couple of the things that we think have really come up and that will continue to come up and present themselves are, as students are dealing with COVID-19, I mean, yes, there's definitely the stress of moving to an online system of learning. There's the stress of either trying to figure out what housing issues you might have. There's the stress of having to have moved home, right? You've been here in Albuquerque, you've been on your own, and now you're having to move home and negotiate that piece. That can be a stress. I think the big thing is understanding that the university, through implementing some of the things that we've talked about already, but also things that we've always offered, are here to provide support. And we're trying to move in a direction that will be as helpful as possible, also understanding that the navigation of that is kind of is sort of always a moving target, right? So we're learning as well. But some of the things that I think are really relevant here is we understand that students may need to communicate with their faculty about extended absences, which even in an online capacity, that might be necessary if you're having to take care of yourself as you're dealing with potential illness, or perhaps taking care of a loved one, or also trying to figure out like your new normal, right? So we're willing to talk to faculty about extended absences and what that could look like. Maybe you might find yourself in a position where you decide it really is in my best interest that I need to take a medical leave of absence because you've become sick yourself, or you're caring for a loved one or close family member, or so my staff is available to sort of walk you through what that process could look like and talk to you about those options, right? I think that's the biggest thing about where we are right now is we need to be constantly considering what are all the options, and then really determining like what's the best option for each individual. And so I think in having conversations with folks from my office or other resource centers or other places across campus, that can kind of give you a better understanding of all the options. So maybe it feels like right now I feel like the only option I have is to drop out because I don't understand the credit, no credit. I don't understand if that applies to all my classes. I'm not sure if I can pay my rent. I'm not sure about food, right? That decision should never be made in a hurry, right? It should never be made without all of the information. And so I think speaking to someone like an advocate from our center or other centers can help you sort of flesh out what that looks like. And you might come to the decision that, hey, I can do this, I can manage this, and we can sort of adjust to this new normal. But if ultimately you decide that's not what you can do, certainly we are looking at tuition refund appeals that we see through our office for medical reasons, so we will be continuing with that work. We also can talk to students about what grade petitions, or excuse me, what scholarship petitions look like, and also have them be thinking about, you know, how does all of this impact my financial aid, right? So those things are all part of that decision-making process, but know that we are still up and running to provide information for that. I'd say one of the other things that I think is really important to think about is food, right? Food insecurity during this time is a real issue. We are continuing with our campus food pantry. We've moved to a sort of safer social distancing model, if you will, in which we are here one day a week. So the food pantry distribution is happening on main campus Mondays from 1:30 to 3:30 or until our supply runs out for the day. And so we ask students to drive up. We're sort of using that A lot by the residence halls and the tennis court parking lot. People can drive up. We ask to see your Lobo ID, but that's all we ask you for. We jot down the ID number and then ask you to open the trunk or your back seat, and we put a bag of food in there and away you go. So you're really only spending about 5 minutes of your time with us. That has become increasingly more popular. So I would say the sooner you can get there, the closer to 1:30 that you can get there, that would be better. But if you're having issues around that, if that timing doesn't work for you, you can always reach out to us at our number 277-2911, and we'd be happy to accommodate that. And then I think the last thing, you know, one of the things that we are on our campus is we are confidential reporting location for sexual misconduct. And those things include sexual assault, but they also include things like domestic violence and intimate partner violence. And we know that as stress increases, that oftentimes, unfortunately, those circumstances of people engaging in that behavior or being the victim of that behavior also increases. So we want to definitely put it out there, and I'm sure Heather's going to talk about this a little bit more, but we are here as a confidential reporting location along with our partners at the LGBTQ Resource Center and the Women's Resource Center. And so it's crucial, like you still, even in these moments, need to find a way to tell your story. And so we want to encourage folks to utilize that service that we provide. And then just in general, I think it's important to know that, you know, we are here, I like to say come hell or high water. And I think that's true for all of us who are just navigating this experience every single day. We're all in this together, and that means that we're all looking for ways to make this as easygoing or as easy an adjustment as it possibly can be. Also recognizing that there's nothing about this that is that easy. So utilize your resources and know that we are available. We also do have our phone, 277-2911, is available overnight. So if you do need to speak to an advocate, there is an advocate available overnight. think that covers it.
Great. Thank you so much, Lisa.
You're welcome.
I think all of those were so important for us to know more about. Up next, we have our Dean of Students, Nasha Torres.
Hi, thank you for having me. My name is Nasha. I'm the Dean of Students here at UNM. I was asked to talk a little bit about the services that the Dean of Students Office is providing while we're all working and learning remotely. We're still operating as much as possible, business as usual. So you can call our phone number 277-3361 and someone will answer Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. You can also email us at doso, D-O-S-O, @unm.edu and check our webpage for updates. So the first thing I would tell students is make sure you check your email. The university sends out regular notifications that students need to know about the academic progress and process and resources for students, so check your email. The other thing I'd say is that the Dean of Students Office is kind of like, we're a good operator. So if you have a question of like, where does this go and what do I do and how do I solve this problem, we're a good resource for that. And we continue to serve students in that capacity. The next is the Center for Financial Capability is a resource offered through the Dean of Students Office, and we're still working. So we do we have online resources, we're doing consultations with students, and we have drop-in hours that are remote. And then starting next week, I'm having remote office hours via Zoom, so we'll see how that goes. And they're going to be Tuesdays from 2 to 3. So please, you know, if you were a student who regularly came to my office hours before, come. And if you were a student who never did, feel welcome to do it. I'd love to help you. And I think, the last thing is the short-term loans. So Dean of Students Office is still offering short-term loans, and they're accessible on our webpage remotely. So if you are experiencing financial hardship, I think that's a really good resource for students as well. Thanks, Frankie. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Nasha. Up next, we have Heather Jaramaillo from the Office of Equal Opportunity.
Thank you, Frankie. Thanks everyone else for being on this panel as well. I'm Heather. I am the Associate Director at the Office of Equal Opportunity, and our office handles all civil rights issues on campus, complaints, reports, and our policies and procedures apply to faculty, staff, students, and visitors to UNM. As part of civil rights protections, there are 16 different protected categories that UNM considers under its civil rights policies. And Frankie asked me to talk a little bit today about what students can do if they feel like they are being discriminated against, harassed, or bullied because of their race, or if they're experiencing xenophobia. The protected statuses that OEO considers include race, color, ethnicity, and national origin. And like I said before, these policies apply to all faculty, staff, and students. And just because we move from a physical campus to a virtual campus, it doesn't mean that our policies don't apply anymore. They still apply. So if a student does feel like they are experiencing some sort of racism, any kind of xenophobia, for that matter, any of the other protected categories that are still important, such as sexual orientation, if they experience sexual assault, like Lisa was saying, any of those can all still be reported to OEO. So OEO is still fully operational. We're just in a virtual format now, and we are taking complaints still. You can call us and leave us a voicemail at 277-5251. That voicemail is checked multiple times a day. You could email us at oeounm@unm.edu. You can file an online report at our website, which is oeo.unm.edu. And you can also file on the Ethics Point hotline. You can file anonymous reports or use all of your contact information. We leave that up to participants. And we are continuing to work closely with campus partners like the LGBTQ Resource Center, Lobo Respect, the Women's Resource Center, to make sure our participants in our process feel safe and supported. So don't feel shy about reaching that out in that way as well. Students can also file hate bias reports with the UNM Police Department. That can be done online or via phone with UNMPD. Those reports go to both UNMPD and directly to our director, Francie Cordova. UNMPD assesses those reports for a possible crime, and we assess those reports for possible civil rights violations. So we send out resources regardless of whether or not our office can actually investigate it. So feel encouraged to do that. And then if you experience any sort of discrimination outside of the UNM community, for example, at the grocery store or perhaps in a landlord setting or something like that, some really good resources are the Albuquerque Office of Civil Rights. Their website is up and running and they can be contacted and they're fully operational as well. And if you experience a hate crime that is off UNM campus, you can contact the Albuquerque Police Department. You can actually file a report online at their website. I think that covers everything from me, but if I'm looking forward to any questions, then thanks so much, Frankie.
Great, thank you so much, Heather. Heather, can you actually talk a little bit about the, earlier you sent out an email of some resources and stuff. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so our office put together a kind of a FAQ sheet for civil rights at UNM during limited operations at the university due to COVID-19. That can be found at our website. It's on the homepage, oeo.unm.edu. And I also shared that with Frankie earlier today. So but if you want to, you can reach out to me directly and I'm happy to share that resource with you all. It also connects to resources off of UNM campus and in the community, so.
Great, thank you so much, Heather. Up next, we have Ray Mitchell from SHAC to talk about ways to take care of yourself and things that SHAC can provide right now.
Just to orient everyone a little bit to SHAC services, that's student health and counseling. Our number is 277-3136. We have made some changes, of course, in our center because of the COVID-19. We're screening everybody that comes in, including employees. And the best thing you can do as students is to call first and let them know what your concerns are. If the concerns include fever and some of the standard symptoms for COVID, you'll be given instructions by one of our triage nurses on what to do next. So things are a bit different. If it's some other medical problem, I would say also call, but you can show up at our front door. You will also be screened there. There's some instructions on the front door, a number to call, and you'll be triaged and screened. We're not using the waiting room anymore for obvious reasons. Once you're triaged and screened, someone will get you and take you directly to the exam room for the doctor. As far as counseling is concerned, we're all doing telehealth, and we're doing regular hours. And the way to access that is, once again, call our number, and you'll be set up for a brief appointment with one of our counselors called a triage. And then you'll have to fill out a little bit of online paperwork, not that much. And then a counselor will contact you through Zoom and have a telehealth session with you. Let me see, what am I missing here? Oh yeah, pay attention to your email. We do have a secure messaging system that can go out to all students. We use it specifically as our health portal for existing patients and clients. So pay very close attention to that for any messages from us or any announcements. Other announcements, pay attention to your email for our Shack newsletter. It's very comprehensive. It includes COVID-19 information, links to get more information. It publishes anything new that we need to get to the students. Thanks to Tiffany, our health educator, we've got a lot of great tips on stress reduction, recipes, how to exercise at home, how to take care of yourself. One of the ones I like the most is a blog at the end of it by Chris Naranjo. His latest one was Enduring the Crisis Together. And I thought that was a very uplifting blog that he wrote. So thanks to Chris. So bottom line, if you forget all that I'm saying, go to the Shack newsletter and remember our number, 277-3136. Also wanted to talk a little bit about, I was asked to talk a little bit about stress and anxiety and some tips on alleviating some of that. And I've been working with a lot of students, my clients, who are dealing with a disruption in the routine. And of course we all are. But like one of you said before, it's not that you have a lot of time just, to get more extra work from teachers. It's an incredible change to start building a routine. And you've got to take that initiative. One way of thinking about this is instead of asking the question, why do I feel so frustrated? Ask the question, what can I do different to make this reality more effective? So there's some bright spots in all this. I would say cut down on social media. Of course, get the information that you need from TV and other sources. But don't spend a lot of time on it. Get the information and move on to what you have to do next. The trouble with social media, because of, there's more bad news than good news, of course, and it gives us a sense of not having control. And so stress and anxiety will go up when we have a loss of sense of control. Focus on those things you do have control over. So when we focus on things we do have control over, our anxiety goes down. And that's one tip. Another tip is obviously a regular routine. I was talking with one of my clients this morning who's, and a lot of my clients are having trouble getting into a routine, getting up at a regular time, skipping showers, and it will lead to depression and anxiety if you don't stick with a regular routine. So even if you don't have a lot to do, get up at a specific time that you choose. Do everything that you do, that you usually do before you go to work or go to school. And that will signal those old pathways in your brain to keep you healthy and keep you in a place where you're less stressed. The other thing I think overall is when you expose yourself to social media, try to find uplifting content. These are hero stories. These are stories about people being kind to one another, really going out of their way, sacrificing themselves, especially our healthcare workers right now. And so there's a lot of that going on in social media as well. The last thing I want to say about stress is you have to accept a certain amount of stress. And that willingness to accept a certain amount of stress can make us stronger. It'll make you careful and it'll keep you safe. And obviously following all the guidelines that you learn from the news, from the government, etc., is really crucial right now. And staying healthy is the other thing I wanted to talk about. Schedule regular time outdoors. We can only make vitamin D in our system with sunlight. Staying indoors too much will go down on our vitamin D. Vitamin D is shown to help us with our immune system. So regular time outdoors is one of the biggest tips I have. Of course, everyone knows vitamin C is good too. Move your body. A lot of people can't get to the gym or Johnson Gym and all that, but find ways to move your body, getting outside, exercising. The other thing is do something grounding for yourself. Get outside, plant a plant. You know, I was thinking about maybe planting some tomatoes. I never do that. But now that I've got a little more time, I'm working from home, I'm going to plant some tomatoes, I think. So that grounds us in and gives us a greater sense of control. Finally, I would say do creative things. Learn new things. Hobbies, puzzles, art, crafts. Read the book you've always wanted to read, only after you do your homework. And I think the best, one of the things I'm encouraging my clients is keep in contact with others, keep in contact with family, make dates with your friends, go on virtual dates. I know some of my clients are having virtual get-togethers and having a beer together. Those things can really, really help. Human contact is the thing that we're suffering most from a lack of right now. And so make sure that you plan to meet with others. If it is, like I said, if it isn't on the calendar, it probably won't happen. So I think that's about all I wanted to share with you today. And I thank you so much, Frankie, for inviting me to come here and talk with you all.
Great, thank you so much. So just a reminder that we do have all the information that has been mentioned, we do have it on unm.edu/coronavirus for those who are interested. So up next, we have our final panelist, Jennifer Marley, who will be talking about ways to practice self-care.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Marley. I'm in the Department of American Studies, and this is my second semester as a graduate student. And I was asked to speak a little bit to how graduate students can practice self-care in this time. So I wanted to kind of bring that conversation into a more political context. So I like to think about some of the women of color feminists who even gave us the language of self-care, like Bell Hooks and Audre Lorde, because I feel like it's important to remember that history and to remember the context in which it came out of, and how sometimes it's removed from that context today, and kind of seen as only a psychological factor. But as we know right now, what's happening around us materially has everything to do with our mental health and our well-being. And something that those women of color feminists taught us was that self-care isn't always a very glamorous or pleasurable thing. Self-care, first and foremost, is doing the hard work of what it takes to just simply maintain yourself. And in itself is a type of labor, especially when we talk about how gendered labor is. So self-care can look like doing your dishes, doing your laundry, taking a shower, taking care of your kids or your pets. And right now, that labor continues to fall disproportionately on non-men as far as caretaking goes. Caretaking people who may be sick, elders, children who can't go to school, and many of our students find themselves in that position. And I also just wanted to point out that we're seeing just skyrocketing records of domestic violence, particularly violence against women, and even an outbreak of femicide in some countries. So in terms of self-care, some of the tips I would like to give are to look to this history of self-care, like look at where it came from, but also to remember that right now in times of crisis, crisis kind of generates this language and these methods of taking care of ourselves that we have come to know now. And so there's no right or wrong way necessarily to do that unless it's causing harm to yourself or others. And perhaps this is a time for us to think about what new forms of self-care are going to look like while we're in quarantine and while we don't have necessarily the ability to be in community with each other physically, which can be a really big part of it. I also encourage graduate students to I guess kind of take a step back from what they might have envisioned their long-term goals being. Because I know when I talk with my cohort, people are asking like what's the point of this now? What's the point of grad school? Like I don't know if it's worth it anymore. And a professor of mine said, well, there's no better time to be a grad student right now because it's up to us to articulate the theories and come up with the methods that are going to help people at large through this crisis, not just in the world of academia, not just within the world of intellectuals, but for everybody in the world. And so starting to understand our purpose in the academy is something that goes beyond our own personal endeavors, I think is a really important way to reframe things and keep a positive attitude because it's really hard to envision what a future looks like right now. Another one I would say is to not beat ourselves up over what we can and can't accomplish. I myself thought like, oh, I'm going to be able to read all my books and have all my work in right on time, and I'm still struggling, and in fact I think I'm struggling more, and I think that's the case for a lot of students because time seems to just be disintegrating right in front of us. I'm like answering emails at 1 a.m. because everything's just so off. So I definitely agree with Mr. Mitchell, who stressed the importance of having a schedule. I think that is really important to stabilize people. And then another one is to, I guess, kind of take a moment to reflect on what, like, the fast-paced world, the fast pre-coronavirus world we lived in took away from us, and to reflect on how we can reclaim those things, whether it's our sense of worth that's linked to productivity, even body image issues, which I myself and a lot of others I know are kind of starting to rethink, like rethinking how we present ourselves or how we feel about other people perceiving us, because right now we're only perceived through our virtual encounters. And I think that's kind of helping people to understand like what things like beauty or status even mean or meant in our culture here in the US and around the world. Another thing I want to emphasize too is that self-care is also about caring for others, but not at the expense of one's well-being. And so I think a lot of people also right now are feeling like they're not productive enough, or they're feeling like the imposter syndrome is a really big thing right now, and people are starting to feel kind of useless. And I think it's just really unfortunate that we've been so conditioned to see our value is wrapped up in what we can produce. And so I'm hoping that people are taking some time to kind of rethink what productivity even means and to start to value the things they produce that don't necessarily come out to monetary value. Things like people's art skills, people's literary skills, and even just people's ability to uplift others. I think it's extremely important right now that we start to rethink what has value and what is productive. And I think these are going to be changes that actually influence dominant culture for good, or at least I hope they do. I genuinely believe that there's no coming back from this. Things aren't going to be the way they were after this, and that's also a source of fear, right? It's a source of excitement and fear for me personally, but I think kind of accepting that we get to create new ways of living, new ways of being now, and embracing that instead of being afraid of it. So, yep, that's what I have to share.
Thank you so much, Jen. That was really helpful. And I think that even those of us who are professionals are struggling with that. So thank you for that reminder of it's okay to not be okay, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we are actually going to go back to Jacob, who has some more information about stuff from ASU&M.
Oh, hey guys. I just wanted to answer a question that was asked in the beginning of the webinar, and it was, is there anything ASU&M would like students to know that is not being addressed right now? Here in Albuquerque, but for all the significant events that the Asian community's had, it's like baffling to me, at least, that Asian people can be turned on so quickly because of COVID-19. I wanted to list some of the accomplishments, just a couple. The coverage of Asian representation in mainstream media, the first Asian American city councilor being appointed in Albuquerque, the death of one of the most prominent figures in the Albuquerque Asian community, Delia Alcantara, who was one of the few Filipino women to have a PhD at our university, and she was also the founder of New Mexico Asian Family Center. Also, the establishment of the Asian American Student Association last semester, fall 2019, and its significant amount of participants and how they've grown significantly just being established last semester. Yeah, I just wanted to talk about that and just say that I think if there was ever a good time to implement an Asian Resource Center, it would be now. If anyone would like to sign the petition, I will put it in the chat. We are at like 369 signatures from students at UNM. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. So we are a little over time, but does anyone have any final questions for any of our panelists, any of the attendees? As we mentioned, we are recording this, and we will be, this will be able up on the LGBTQ website and our Facebook page as well. We'll also be giving it to all of the ethnic and resource centers, including Lobo Respect Advocacy Center, Accessibility Resource Center, to make sure that people have access to this. There was a lot of information that was shared that was amazing. I don't see any other questions, so I think we are going to end. Thank you again to all of our amazing panelists. And oh, we do have a question actually. Oh, yes, thank you, Liz. It's so important for us to talk about self-care during this time. And yeah, we are absolutely here to support our students. And if you have a student who is in need of specific resources, please feel free to utilize any of the ethnic centers, any Lobo Respect Advocacy Center. We have advocates who are here, the Student Faculty Facilitation Network. This is uncharted territory for all of us. And so we are trying to do our very best, and we want to make sure that we are supporting our students at all times. So with that, we do want to mention that there is another climate and COVID-19 impact on staff and faculty webinar happening next Friday, the 17th at 2 p.m. And we will have that Zoom link out for you all here soon. If there are no other questions, we are going to end now. Thank you all again so much, and have a great day.